Joe Biden is giving up and going to the beach. The president has no events today and instead is in Delaware for a holiday getaway while Omicron spikes all across the country. Now, back when he was a candidate, Biden promised to shut down the virus. Then once he was president, he bashed GOP governors for not doing enough.
The administration's failure on testing is colossal, and it's a failure of planning, leadership, and execution. We will deal honestly with the American people, and we'll never, ever, ever quit. That's how we'll shut down this virus. I'm going to shut down the virus. I'm not going to shut down the economy. I'm going to shut down the virus. We need to scale up testing so anyone who needs one can get a test. After 10 months of the pandemic, we still don't have enough testing. It's a travesty. Some state officials are passing laws or signing orders that forbid people from doing the right thing. But if you aren't going to help, at least get out of the way.
Now the president is singing a much different tune, saying there's not really much he can do.
Look, there is no federal solution. This gets solved at a state level. I'm looking at Governor Sununu on the board here. He talks about that a lot. And it ultimately gets down to where the rubber meets the road, and that's where the patient is in need of help or preventing the need for help.
But people all across the country still don't have access to COVID tests, and they're stuck waiting hours in line when maybe it didn't have to be this way.
Under President Trump, you had 3 major tests approved, BinaxNOW by Abbott, Quidel, and BD Veritor. Those are the 3 main ones that are out there now, those home tests. Guess what just got approved? The Roche test just got approved 1 year into the Biden administration, 1 year, and that's a terrific home test. And it finally got an emergency use authorization, but was stalled in front of the FDA under the Biden administration. So the blame game doesn't work. And for sure, President Biden has to say, what did President Trump get right?
Well, I'm going to start with you, Joey, because the failures of this administration have been very personal for you. Of course, I'm talking about the humiliating exit from Afghanistan and the needless death that was caused in that situation. But here we are. He said he was going to have the test. We don't have the test. And he also complained about the other president not having the test. And we don't have the test. Joey?
You know, it feels like maybe somebody just played Joe Biden's words for Joe Biden and he listened. Hey, just get out of the way and let, if you're not going to help, get out of the way and let those that will do it. And that's what he's doing. He's going to go on vacation and some governors are going to step in and do the right thing, I hope. It really is amazing. I mean, can you imagine the billboards that will pop up in places like my hometown in Dalton, Georgia? It's just going to be Joe Biden's big face and it's going to say, there is no federal solution. There is nothing President Joe Biden can do by his own words to help in any of these things we're struggling with, from inflation to, like you said, what happened in Afghanistan to what's happening at the border and now coronavirus. I just don't know how you work for this man and not just hang your head in shame when he sits up there and he says something like that. I mean, he's got a staff there that's working every day. I think they're honest in their work, and he really has just taken the air out of their balloon. I don't know how they keep going to work every day at this point.
Nicole, let me start with you, too, because you're a doctor. You're my friend, but you're a doctor, too. I have a question about Omicron that's just on my mind as I see all this play out. Omicron is very virulent. It spreads rapidly, but it appears to not be deadly. So explain to me why this wouldn't be a great opportunity to kind of let it rip through the population and get herd immunity.
Well, Rachel, first of all, out of all the global data from South Africa, UK, Scotland, others, including the United States, there is a lot of information that is suggesting that the virulence of Omicron is much less, with the much lower hospitalization rate, anywhere from 40 to 80% less than we saw with Delta and preceding earlier variants. Now, that it doesn't mean that it's not as contagious. It's actually much more contagious, much more transmissible, which is why we're seeing such a high rise of cases right now. But, you know, in terms of should we just let it rip, and it's a fine fine line, Rachel. First of all, by doing that and by letting things just go unchecked in the population, you will have preventable illness, preventable hospitalizations, and preventable death. However, I wrote a piece on FoxNews.com a couple of weeks ago that was met with criticism because I said at this point in the pandemic, we have the vaccines, we have boosters, we have a large amount of natural immunity, and we finally have a variant that, yes, is highly contagious, but seems to be more mild, especially more mild in people who are fully vaccinated and people who are boosted. So people have the tools at this point to prevent infection, and if they do get infected, it tends to be more mild, less serious, and now we finally have treatments that are proving effective. So yes, getting that hybrid immunity, that vaccine-induced immunity, plus a breakthrough infection, so some level of natural immunity, that is by far the strongest wave of protection that we could have moving forward. And this could be our step into making this virus become endemic, and that is how the mindset needs to change. I'm glad President Biden has finally realized that it will not be a black and white federal solution. I'm old enough to remember when President Trump said a couple of years ago, this needs to be on, the onus needs to be on the states. It is the federal government's job to secure these private-public partnerships and get out of the way. And that is exactly what Operation Warp Speed did. They allowed people to get that private-public partnership, get things to the market, and unfortunately, we're not seeing the same urgency under the Biden administration.
Well, you're so right, Doctor, because President Trump said from the very beginning that states should be allowed to do what they think is right for their state. So, Richard, now it seems like the Biden administration is agreeing with Trump on this. Do you agree that this should have always been a state solution?
Well, a couple things here. Number one, I do think that it has to be a mixture of both the federal government and the state government working together to ensure that people get supplies, folks get ventilators, which we saw at the beginning of the pandemic when when states were searching for ventilators. It was on the federal government to make sure they had those ventilators. But with that being said, what I really hate is the president's on vacation headlines. Right? We saw this. This headline rears its ugly head every single year. It happened under George W. Bush. It happened under Barack Obama. It happened under Donald Trump. It happened under the White House. And I think the American people are smarter than that. They know wherever the president goes, so goes the White House. Both the White House Communications Office, all the necessary advisors the president needs to have on hand to make decisions, the nuclear football, military, everything moves when the president moves. So this headline that news outlets continue to put out there, it's just so misleading and it's so ridiculous.
Yeah, I actually agree with you, Richard. I think that, with technology, the president can go wherever he's at. Now, if the president's not in good shape mentally, that's another issue. It doesn't matter where he's at in that case. Tyrus, let me go to you because the president's top COVID advisor is Dr. Fauci, as we know, and he's saying we need to cancel New Year's. I'm hosting New Year's for Fox News. We're not canceling. What do you think?
Well, as someone who gets to stay home for New Year's, cancel away. No, I'm just kidding. It's wrong. The only thing that is refreshing is that the president finally did throw his hands up and said, we dropped the ball. There's nothing we can do on the federal level. It's up to the governors and state. And I'm kind of, at least give me that, because we've heard nothing but nonsense coming out of the federal government under this administration. Since they came in, they were going to do all this other stuff. And here's the part that drives me absolutely mad is they've wanted all of us to act like we're in. Remember when we were kids, there was like code orange and code red, and it's been code orange COVID pretty much since the administration took over. But they still ran out of tests, which means that on the surface, you're telling us it's terrible, but in the closed doors, you're saying, don't worry about it. We can go on vacations. We'll just lower the CDC, from 10 days to 5 days, so we can make up for not having testing, because federal workers can't go back to work unless they have a negative test on their COVID test if they get COVID. So they continually changing. It's like a Rubik's Cube where someone peels the stickers off. That's what this administration is doing. They just put new stickers around saying, look, we solved the Rubik's Cube. And no, you didn't. It's a hot mess. Get it together.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah, they definitely look like they're making it up as they go along.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.